Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of the best and most influential shows of all time, but even it isn't without issues and things that should be changed in the upcoming revival. Starring Sarah Michelle Gellar as the titular demon hunter, Buffy the Vampire Slayer ran for 7 seasons between 1997 and 2003. With endlessly quotable dialogue and fun, compelling storylines, there's a good reason why Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of the fantasy TV shows from the 1990s that still holds up. As a result, the revival, to be directed by Chloe Zhao, was met with widespread excitement from established fans. Across 144 episodes, Buffy the Vampire Slayer covers a lot of story ground. Just as much is covered in the comic continuation that could fuel the Buffy revival's story. As a result, there is much that should be avoided, so as not to simply rehash Buffy the Vampire Slayer's most iconic episodes. For starters, the vampire and Slayer romance has been done, first with Angel, David Boreanaz, and then with Spike, James Masters. As such, there's no need to retread that with Buffy or any new Slayer that she mentors. That's only the beginning of the changes the revival should make, however. 5. Lean even deeper into the horror on occasion. Buffy the Vampire Slayer needs to play to the maturity of its original audience. Der Kinderstod. Some of the best installments were the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes that were actually scary. That should remain true of the revival. Furthermore, the show should sink its proverbial teeth even deeper into that genre. After all, those who watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer during its initial run are now older and more discerning. It'll take a lot more to send shivers down the spines of even a younger audience in this day and age. Not every episode needs to fit this mold, but some that really lean into the spooks would go a long way. TV can push the envelope a lot more these days, and the Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival would be remiss to not make use of that. One of the ways it could do so would be to make vampires more threatening again. As Buffy's power grew, so did the villains she faced. As a result, vampires were relegated to minions and swiftly defeated villains of the week. Introducing a new vampire nemesis that's actually dangerous and even terrifying would be a good way to take the show back to its roots and update things beyond its recent successors. 4. A more nomadic Slayer. The revival can borrow from Supernatural to explore Buffy's freedom. Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Sam and Dean from Supernatural. At the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 7, the town of Sunnydale was destroyed and the Hellmouth beneath was buried for good. As a result, Buffy was free to travel the world at her leisure while fighting the forces of evil. That is paid off in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic books, with Buffy stationed in various US cities and as far afield as Tibet. The revival, therefore, has the perfect chance to translate that. Buffy's adventure in each episode can take place in a different part of the country, or the world, making things distinct. No more Mr. Nice Guys. Buffy the Vampire Slayer can finally be free of toxic masculinity. Riley Finn in front of a door in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. One of the ways Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a product of its time was it falling into the nice guy trope. The most notable example was Riley Finn, Mark Blucas, who was always threatened by Buffy's strength and emotionally manipulative until the end. Equally, even Xander Harris was occasionally problematic on Buffy, in how he continuously sexualized his friends and advocated for people like Riley. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival can fix all of that by eschewing toxic masculinity in favor of more mature, more evolved male characters, or otherwise make such figures the monsters and villains that they are better representation. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival can better reflect the modern world. Buffy Kendra Slayer. Another way that Buffy the Vampire Slayer hasn't aged well is its representation. As great as the Scooby Gang are, it was notable how little diversity there was among them, throughout all 7 seasons. And when more diverse characters came, they were caricatures, villains, swiftly killed off, or a combination of the above. With the Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival bringing the action into the modern day, they can better reflect the world at large, especially if they do have Buffy traveling around as part of her Slayer duties. And not just in terms of race, but also by introducing characters of different sexualities and genders. Willow's sexuality. Buffy the Vampire Slayer can finally go with the original plan for Willow. Speaking of such things, Willow, Allison Hannigan, has always served as a beacon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer representation, especially through her beloved relationship with Tara, Amber Benson. Throughout said relationship, Willow described herself as gay. That wasn't the original intention, however. In an interview with Metro, Joss Whedon reveals that the plan was to make Willow bisexual, but he was talked out of it, believing society wasn't ready. Society has come a long way since, and, with bisexual representation at a minimum, it would be interesting to see Willow officially identify as such in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot's episodes.